we review the kit with the power supply that's in it. But because of the amount of times people said, I've now gone over to the RM1000i. The I means it's got the Link software, which is how I monitor and record my power draw, and I do have an external like wall thing, and they're normally within about 2 watts of each other. So the Corsair stuff is pretty accurate as far as the old way that I used to do it. So we've got that. I've had to change the solid state drives this time. I've got a 512GB Force LX as the OS drive, when that's where the benchmarks and stuff are, and then I've got a couple of Force LS 480GB in RAID 0, and that is just for game drives, game storage. If you saw the post I put on Facebook and Instagram last week about the RAID failing, then it was those 2 drives that decided they didn't want to play nice with each other. But it's all sorted now, we're all up and running, nothing's changed. I just had to reset it up and get it all running again, but we're all good. So the other things is you can see that I have got some cable combs on the Cable Mod kit, wire kit that I've got, and it's a custom red and white one that they made for me. One thing I will say with the cable combs is I am very much a noob and a beginner with these, and if you've got any advice for me on how to try and tidy these up, then please pop along to the OC3D forums and I would love to hear from you. I'm relatively happy with the 24 pin and the 8 pin, but I'm not particularly happy about the way that these have come out. I do need to spend some more time on it, and this down here is blatantly not quite right. I just need to have a play. So the problem with these is most definitely me. So bad Tommy, we can't all get things perfect first time. It will probably evolve, but I just wanted to let you know. Other than that, we've got a H100i GTX, or sorry, slap my wrist again. There's a H100i V2 in the roof. The fans that are on this are actually EK Vardas, and I do quite like those, and you may see those in my personal system that's coming up soon. Memory, we've got the 3200 MHz Dominator Platinum, and it's the ROG version. So we've just got those in there for the minute. The memory and the colouring, I'm actually thinking about changing. I might even go like monochrome and like grey with this at some point. But this is the hardware spec anyway, and this is how we test it all. I do have the panel on the roof, but it's not actually attached. There's little thumb screws, and it keeps it about an inch off of the actual top. And it just means that when we, for argument's sake, if I was to go like this, it just means that all the lines still light up and it can look alright. But anyway, this is our test rig, and this is how we test it. So this is that was the test rig, and this is our power draw graph. Now the problem with the power draw graph now is we've now changed the CPU, memory, all kinds of stuff. We've still put it in there, and it is relatively close to the old 980. The old 1080. Now you need to remember that the old 1080 was tested on the old system, but this one is still pulling about 336 watts max, and that was with the 336 watts. That's just GPU intensive kind of power draw. As we do a few more cards, we'll be able to start telling the difference between them. But when we do change hardware like this, and it's why I don't do it very often, it does completely ruin all of the graphs that we've got. So this is just something that we're just going to have to bear in mind going forward. So when we look at our 3D Mark Firestrike Ultimate graph, and one thing I will say right from the very beginning is, if you are interested in this card and you think about it, and you want more results and more tests and all that type of stuff, please go and have a look on the OC3D website, because the full review is there with all of the games, all of the benchmarks, more of the DX12 stuff and 11 stuff. We've put a lot of work in this time. We've added a lot of new games in for you all as well. So this is just the highlights. So if you are interested in more info, click the link underneath or click the card and go and have a look at the full review. Now down to the nitty gritty. 3D Mark Firestrike Ultimate, which is the 4K one, and it's the really stressful one. It's the most stressful bench that 3D Mark has got out at the moment. The old 1080 was doing 5,083 points, and this one is now 5,332. So what you need to remember with this, that it's literally click in and run. I've spoken to you about the overclocking and the boost and all that kind of stuff. So these numbers are massively healthy, especially when you see above. It's only, you've got the 980 Matrix, which is a higher clock speed for the 980s, but it's actually in front of, by a good margin, the GTX 980 SLI reference cards. When we move on, what we can also see, this is another 4K test, and it's Unigine. This is free to download as well. You can just go and get Valley from the Unigine website, and you've essentially, you can see the 1080 below the 1080 Strix, but in this graph as well, and this is one of the reasons why we did it, is you can actually see that it can perform better than a lot of the 980 Ti's. Then what we can do is we can move on to Rise of the Tomb Raider. We've tested Rise of the Tomb Raider in both DX11 and DX12. So one thing that you can see in DX11 is in 4K you've got 52.1 frames a second, and with DX12, because it's not that great in Tomb Raider at the moment, you actually get frames per second less. Now if we were to run the test another 10 times, for example, they'd probably average out as being about roughly the same. But the most important thing here, and this is the reason for me going on about it, is if you look at the difference between 1080p, you can actually see that you do get a bit of a boost with DirectX 12. When we move on to Ashes of the Singularity, there's actually a boost across the board with this one, and this is one of the reasons why we can say that Rise of the Tomb Raider is just not that well optimised. Whereas with this, you can see that you do get a bit of a boost, although not very much, but you do get a bit of a boost across the range. It's much less with 4K than it is with 1080, but again, you would expect that because you wouldn't be expecting if you're running 4 times the amount of pixels as you would be with 1080 to 4K, you wouldn't be expecting 4 times the amount of boost as well. So if you have a look that you've got about 4 frames per second difference, and then it moves down to about 1.5, I'd say that's about right for a resolution increase. Right then peeps, so I know I can go on in these videos, but to me it's important to try and squeeze as much information into them as possible. And one of the things that I will say right from the very get-go is we know that the 1080 is going to be £620, 620 quid, depends how cockney you want to get, even though I'm not from London. So, would I say that it's worth 620 quid? Well, it's kicking a lot of cards around that price bracket when they come out, and we're obviously moving on now. We need to remember that it's using less power, it's quieter now, and really the kind of option that if you're looking at, if you own a 1080, is it a viable upgrade? So if you own a 980 or less, is it a viable upgrade? I would say yes. If you're rocking a 980 Ti, then really you are on the cusp of, do you want to jump on the new tech now or should you wait till later? I would say if you are running a 980 Ti, no matter what brand, and you're looking at this and you're looking at me for an answer, should I buy it, Tom? I'm actually going to go against the grain and go probably not. If you've not overclocked your 980 Ti, then get your overclocking software, whether it comes with your card, doesn't matter what brand, then that is what you should be doing for now. We don't know what might happen later, but if you are looking to upgrade, then this isn't a cracking card. It's obviously the first of the vendor cards, so I've not had an immense amount to be able to compare with yet. But if you think this is going to be for you, maybe you've got the Maximus 8 formula and you want to hook up the RGB side of things, or you're looking at the X99 Strix. One thing that I can tell you is that the software at the moment, you will still have a motherboard Aura software and then the graphics card Aura software. Nothing we can do about that for the moment. I have moaned at Asus and they've just gone, we know we were just trying so hard to get the card out, we didn't get the software finished. They reckon, they've told me, by the time that the majority of these actually get to retail, because they're not actually available yet, they're not in the shops. So it's a little bit of an arse. They reckon by the time that they're in the shops, the software should be finished. So this point will be mute. I should probably have kept my mouth shut. Hey, I told you anyway. So if you're interested with that, then it's, it could be a cracker. The other really good thing to think about it, and it's simplicity, and that is if you want to jump on one of these and you're a little bit scared of overclocking, to be honest with you, you don't need to anymore. And you're really going to, I think it may split the field a little bit, because a lot of us love to overclock and have a bit of a play. And this, at least with the one that I've got, is very fit and forget. We could be changing matters with Silicon Lottery, but I would actually like to think that the GPU Boost 3, which is this new one, if you do get a better core, I would like to think that it would be able to push it up that little bit further anyway. So it could still mean that overclocking as we know it might be getting phased out, because when the auto kind of boosting is so good on this, it's almost not worth messing around trying to get any more. So in that respect, it's cracking. Temperatures again below 70 degrees, incredibly quiet throughout as well. Didn't hear it spin up. To be honest with you, this fan at the back is probably the loudest bit of this system. So it's cool, calm, collected. Absolutely blows the barn doors off of any 980 that's out there. Definitely is up there performing with 980 tyres, and in some benchmarks beyond. And while it's doing that, it's pulling less power, and essentially this is the first of the thoroughbred VR ready cards. Because if you're, another thing to remember is if you are interested in one of these, go back and look at a lot of the other technologies that are coming in with the way that it deals with virtual reality. Also go and have a look at some of the new stuff that's coming in with Ansel, although that's across the range now and not just Pascal based. So, in other words, it's an absolute cracker of the card. I know a lot of people are going to be getting a little bit antsy, thinking that it should have been about £100 cheaper because it's got the 80 and not an 80 Ti. But this is what we've got to deal with right now, and with the card that's on the table, it performs unbelievably. It's an absolute cracker. So I'm not going to go around it in circles any longer. You get the gist. It's a good card. You're just going to have to make peace whether you can deal with the fact that it's not got a Ti on the end. But as I've tried to be completely honest with you, if you've got a 980 Ti, then I wouldn't necessarily jump now. But for any of those of you out there that are running the 980, maybe even the 780, 970, those kind of people, looking at Pascal as a viable upgrade path, I think that considering the massive leap forward that we've had from the 980 to the 1080, for the 980 to the 1080, the boost has been quite big. Maybe it's clever naming, that's all up for debate. But yes, a lot of money, lot of performance, not a lot of heat, not a lot of noise. Balances out. You tell me, love to hear your thoughts, but this is our first in the new rig. It's our first with Windows 10 as well. And just to finish at the end, people have asked why I've not changed sooner. Again, it's because it messes up the graphs, and it just makes comparing things very hard. But that's why I reviewed the Founders Edition on the...
Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com here with this week's episode of the Market Monday. Today's not going to be a lot of analysis or anything particular special. I'm just going to go over a topic that I wanted to talk about for quite a while now, or just shed some light on, which is the top 10 cards from Modern Masters that are not being reprinted. Top 10 as far as value. So this is part 1 of the series. I might have part 2 out tomorrow that are the top 10 played cards not being printed in Modern Masters 2017. But this is going to be the list of the top 10 most expensive cards that missed the printing in Modern Masters 2017. Now, surprisingly, a lot of these on this list were actually reprinted in Modern Masters 2015. In fact, the estimated value of a Modern Masters 2015 booster box is now higher than the value of Modern Masters 2017, which is funny because you can still find boxes in the 230s, 240s, 250s range for Modern Masters 2015, whereas the price has been creeping up on Modern Masters 2017 to about the 220, 215, 220, 225 mark. So for an extra $15, it might be worthwhile just to go get one of those Modern Masters 2015 that everyone hated so much. So crazy times we live in, because of course when a huge reprint happens, the cards that are not printed in the most recent are going to spike up. So that's just nothing too special for this video. Let's just jump right into the top 10 list of cards that are not going to be reprinted in Modern Masters 2017. So before we get into that though, I just like to give an honorable mention. There are quite a few cards from the $40 to $45 price range. I thought for sure like Dark Confidant would be on this list and Mishra's Bauble, but they don't, not even Emrakul. So just a few of the cards that just barely missed the list was Sword of Fire and Ice, Dark Confidant, Mishra's Bauble, Emrakul, Aether Vial, Arcbound Ravager, and Ensnaring Bridge, just to name a few that didn't quite make the cut. And those are all above $40 or more. So for this particular list, the lowest price card is slightly under $50, and starting off our top 10 is Grove of the Burn Willows. Grove of the Burn Willows had been more expensive at one point, but I think that it is really the transition from the red Tron over to either white Tron, white-green Tron, or black-green Tron, not running Grove, and running the color combinations, of course, either the Golgari or the Selesnya color combinations. And so Grove is kind of tanked within the last few months, down from about, I think it was around 70 at its height. Now it's down to $50. So $50 is still quite expensive for a card in Modern. And if we ever do see people going back to the red list, I think that the red Tron is really good when you need to sweep out tokens or have a lot more game